In my experience, when I go to why, it just creates more thinking. And like an endless stream, like a ball of yarn. I keep pulling on it, and it looks like I'm going to get there, and I never get there when I go to why. In my experience, because I used to do why, I did why for a long time, and then, but I would never get anywhere, except into more thought.
Can I say something?
Well, wait a minute. So, was that helpful?
Yes, I do it around my own life, obviously, which is why I'm comfortable with it. And it almost makes me laugh. It's not probably the best. It does make sense. It does make sense. Because it can just perpetuate it. And it gives you a reason and an excuse.
Yeah, it justifies it.
And it, you know what it does? Here's what it does, you guys, which is, it's so simple and it's so profound and it's so in my mind, because I used to do that. It's like it would keep my intellect going, so that I was in a habit of constantly running my mind, and it was a habit of running my mind. Isn't that interesting? It's so simple. It puts you in a habit. It creates this. It's like feeding the rabbit, or feeding something. Constantly feeding the fire of your intellect. You know, just keep feeding, keep asking why. Oh, think. So it was just this low-level, constant thinking. Isn't that interesting? I find that very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I so thought I had to figure out why. Like, I really, in my mind, thought why was linked to transformation, that unless I knew why, I wouldn't transform. But what was interesting is when I started to see the role of thought kind of creating my moment-to-moment experience, I saw what Linda was saying, that I was taking myself on a nightmare, you know, like this kind of journey. And in a way, I think it might have been George that speaks about this, but I saw that in my mind, I did think a certain amount of awareness would lead to change also. So I spent all my time getting really aware and looking at why I did what I did, why I couldn't do what I wanted to do, why I didn't have what I wanted to have, you know, like just, and all that did was add more thought in my mind and made me more self-conscious. You know, to move in the direction of less of me on my mind and experience the freedom of that versus having me and why I do what I do on my mind or my clients' minds, you know, because I also did that with my clients, of course, because I thought that would help. I thought it was helpful. It's interesting, but not really ultimately leading to transformation.
Now, in my mind, I see this a little bit differently in the sense that I think that the discoveries of Sydney Banks provided a new why.
Oh, good
That's,
one, George.
yeah,
You know,
that's nice,
that
George.
Prior to Sydney Banks, the why had to do with people's, their pasts, their circumstances,
The details.
Yeah.
the details. And you can understand this, you can understand how that came about, because it is true that I could be suffering in real time from a memory. And so Freud and everybody else after him said, well, that's the problem. The person's memory is tormenting them. And that's true. That's not made up. That's true. Okay? Now, all of the therapies have their answer as to what to do with that memory. See, should we deal with the content of it? If it's cognitive therapy, should we deal with the feeling?
The childhood.
The childhood, should we do the feeling of it? If it's Gestalt therapy, okay? Now, Sydney Banks comes along and said, yes, that's right. It is memory causing the problem. But the solution is an understanding of the nature of memory. Understanding is the new why. Everything that goes wrong
Isn't he good?
is
He's so good.
you know, you put a monkey on a typewriter. He's going to end up with a version of Shakespeare at some point. You know? So it's like a new why. In other words, you could talk to your clients about the past, and you could tell them why the past, the understanding it takes for the past to be neutralized, even though you still have the memories. So that was the discovery of Sydney Banks. It's a new why, and everything boils down to understanding is a why. The lack of understanding is why it's a problem, and the gaining of understanding is why it's not a problem. And the beauty of it is nothing else has to change. You don't have to change your memories. You don't have to change your thoughts. You don't have to change your feelings. With understanding, people have well-being, and without it, they don't.
See, like I used to get all involved in my past, and I didn't realize the reason I was getting involved in my past is because I felt I had to fix it.
Yeah.
Now, come on. When I step back to the understanding, it's like I'm trying to change memory. Right? Like George uses this, like an X-ray with it, like you have an X-ray and you have a broken bone. You take a magic marker and you I don't have a broken bone anymore. I'm filling it. So I'm trying to fix my past so I don't have. And I'm like, well, if it's just memory, and it's like all the past is memory brought into the moment. You take it out of your, your software in your brain, and you put it into the present, and you think about it, which is what we all do, right? But when I would come to my mind, I wouldn't just think about it and let it pass. I would think about it and try and fix it. I don't want that memory. Let me change it and fix it.
I'm going to make a statement. That's really bold, but honestly, I want you to consider this. There's no such thing as emotional stress and distress without memory. Every
That's true.
piece, every moment of emotional stress and distress is memory. There's no such thing as any emotional distress for human beings except for memory. And there's actual research that proves that. They had a guy who lost his memory. He lost his short-term memory, he lost his long-term memory. This sounds funny. I don't know why this is funny. So this psychologist was fascinated by this guy, and he wanted to understand the role of memory in life. So he gave this guy a journal. And every morning, when he got up, the psychologist would bring the journal in, and he'd have him write a journal entry. And then at the end of a month, he went through, and every journal entry was the same. It said, it's so incredible to be alive. I can't wait to be in my day and see what happens. He just was joyful. That was it. Every memory was an expression of his joy. Not every memory, every entry in there.
Then he'd forget.
Because he didn't have any memory. And he probably thought that he had a different one every day, who knows. But memory is the only problem for human beings. And it's not the memory itself, it's a lack of understanding of what is the true nature of memory. Anybody that understands the true nature of memory will find themselves less affected even as their memories continue. I think that is so hopeful for the human